City Council work session for Monday, December the 17th. I knew it was getting close to 7 o'clock when Mr. Holman showed up, so where'd he go? Oh, there he is. I know, right? We have a couple of items on our agenda, and then I think Mr. Fearborn has a couple of things to fill us in on under other, but we will start off with a joint meeting between the council and the park board. Mr. Fearborn.
Thanks, sir. And I will immediately turn it over to Mr. Mustine for a very brief staff report on a couple of the projects that we've got going on. And I hate to say this, I never thought I'd be excited about a bathroom, but just wait.
Thanks, sir. It is an exciting restroom facility.
Incredible restroom.
We're very proud of our restrooms here in Raymore. So just a quick update on some of the projects we have going on. As you all are aware, Hawk Ridge Park is currently under construction. We're about halfway through the project. We got a lot of big milestones coming up. Most recently is the Montrose restroom. If you'll remember, this particular facility is part of the grant process that we obtained from Missouri Department of Conservation. So this facility is one that we selected, picked all the features for, and ordered basically. It was shipped in from Spokane, Washington, where it was precast concrete, basically designed, built, everything, and it came in 2 parts. So we've got some pictures here how it came in. We actually had to build a road to get it into that location, so it was so heavy. But it came in on 2 different trucks, and we brought a crane in. They set it. We had built all the utilities, the water lines, all of that, and then the building just basically sat right down on top of all of the plumbing. And so this is the guys bringing it down off the crane, off the truck, setting it right on top of where we had already pre-plumbed everything. And then once it gets in there, the 2 pieces, they basically take some straps and they kind of strap it down and seal it together. And then some nuts and bolts and caulking and paint, and voila, we have a full facility there. So, and it came fully stocked with toilet tissue, so that was pretty exciting. And that is the final structure right there. So that is, as you pull into the south parking lot of Hawk Ridge Park, that facility will be right there at that parking lot. It'll be right next to the trail, the lake, and the parking area on the south side. So we're pretty excited about that. A couple other milestones we've got coming up are the chimneys on the picnic shelter on the north side, the picnic shelter facility, restroom facility. They're currently building the chimneys. And then that structure is customized and built around a metal building, same as the amphitheater. Those 2 metal buildings are due for delivery sometime in January, and so we'll be completing that. We have concrete work continuing to go on. Most of the asphalt will be early spring as soon as the asphalt plant's open. So we're moving right along, and a lot of things are happening out there. The boardwalk, for those of you that haven't been out there or can't see it, the boardwalk framework is in, the decking has been delivered, so they'll start installing the decking on the boardwalk here in the next couple weeks, and the pedestrian bridge is due to be delivered on Wednesday. So a lot of stuff happening there at Hawk Ridge Park. The next thing is exciting. We wanted to show you from a park board's perspective. They have seen this video, but this is essentially this is the design for our all-inclusive spray ground at TB Hanna Station. So this is the first part of it. What we're doing now is we're taking that design and basically when we received the donation for $135,000, we kind of had to back up a little bit. We were far along in the process. We had to back up and redesign some things and do some stuff to accommodate these. This also includes the playground. The playground design isn't necessarily finished yet, but we wanted to show you this just to give you an idea when we say all-inclusive what we're talking about. So we turn the sound down. As this plays through, I'll kind of highlight some features that you're seeing on the video, and then I can answer any questions you have. When you see this, what we're really looking at is the main the main water features, the shade, the building, those things like that. That's just prettiness for the video. So they'll have LED lighting when it gets dark or cloudy or something. Those things will light up for visually impaired. The train, the the motor car there, that is custom. What we've done is we've taken that and we've expanded and spread it out so that it will fit wheelchairs that go underneath. So children in wheelchairs can go through the water features. The wood structures, they have 3 different pieces to those and 3 different type of water spray. There's fountains and everything. On the concrete, there's shades, there's different types of shapes and figures and things, not only for visually impaired, but just for to be fun, honestly. There's sound, there's buttons on there that you can push, and you'll hear train horns and things like that. So the idea is to hit all the senses, but it'll have a rail car or railroad track running right through it. You can see how that is there. So as a child approaches the train, they can punch a button and it'll start the water and start sounds and stuff as they run, roll through the locomotive. So it's a neat facility. What we anticipate is the entire thing's on a timer, so it'll have a time of the day where it can activate and then a time at night where it basically shuts down for the evening. But it'll be on a time sensor as well, so they'll be able to activate a button or roll up over a button or something to activate the water, but it won't run constantly. If it's after a while, it'll automatically shut off and then it'll have to be reactivated. But we're very excited. One of the other things with the playground is we were able to go and visit some other all-inclusive playgrounds, much like we have at the Hawks Nest. For TB Hanna, we were able to see every individual piece that we're going to put in there. So the playground and the spray ground will flow and be very close in proximity and have a lot of neat features that children can go back and forth. And we're pretty excited about it. So I'm happy to answer any questions. That's what we have going on that's most recent.
Before we get to the questions, Nate, could you explain, again for me too, why these, the splash park and the playgrounds have to be enclosed and fenced in?
The main reason for the fencing, which is not normal for a playground. Most of the time they're open, but the fencing is for the most part, for autistic children. It's a way to keep them safe. A lot of times they'll run off, and you can't help that, and that's what they do. They're running and they're playing. So the fencing is a way to help the parents keep them in a safe environment and keep them in a location where they not only can just be accounted for, but the entire facility is built to be safe, and so that fence keeps them in that type of environment. That's the main reason for the fencing.
And I just wanted him to bring that up because that will be a departure from our other playgrounds and play facilities that you'll see.
Anything else, Nate? That's it for now? Okay. Well, generally, when we get together as groups, we kind of open it up for discussion. We've got a lot going on in our parks, as you all know. We had the picture of the restroom up there, and then the water park going down at TB Hanna Station. Lots of things going in down here at Hawk Ridge Park. Is there anything, Steve, and I'll kind of turn it over to you, Steve Troutman, our chair. Oh, I'm sorry, Steve over here. I'll get it. Yeah. So I'll turn it over to you. You guys might want to introduce yourselves.
Might not be a bad idea. Good thought. The guy with the sweater, you want to go first? What? Just introduce yourself.
Brian Harris, Park Board.
Michelle House, Seymour's Park Board.
Steve Troutman.
Melinda Howdy Show. Jenny Cipolla.
Rich Bartow. Ryan Supple.
Okay.
So I think we're real excited. You want to know? No, I'm pretty loud. Is that okay?
For the camera, so you're
Oh, shoot. So I think the point is we're excited because we're finally seeing things happen. And that's a big deal because we've been in planning stages. You guys have been in the planning stages with us. And the things we talk about in our meetings are that things are finally going now, and we're seeing progress. We're seeing giant restrooms coming in on cranes and so forth. That is very exciting because the community, as we talk to them, are getting excited about it as well. And that's a big deal because forever it was just planning. Here, look at this picture. Here, we're doing it. They're actually seeing it now, talking about it. When I'm not lazy, I spend time walking around the rack in the morning, and there's a lot of excitement in there of people already saying, hey, when are you going to expand this? Why don't we add this? Why don't we add that? And as Mr. Holman and I talked about the other day in passing, that's an exciting part when people are talking about our parks. You know, that's really exciting for us that we have them talking and asking about further questions because now they're seeing things that we never had before. So that's a big deal for us. Anybody else have anything? Rich, I know you want to say something. You sure? Yeah. Anyone else? That's what we got.
Okay, fine. Thanks, Steve. Anything else from the park? If not, we'll, that was a quick thing. Melinda, go ahead.
Did we discuss putting the handrails on the side of that locomotive, or did I just think about it? Do you know what I'm talking? Because I'm thinking about the kids who go through there that have some issues with walking. I just think the handrails on the side would be a positive. And I didn't see it in that, but I know it's our.
On the inside? Or the
Yeah,
outside?
on the inside when they walk through.
They're not scheduled to be on the inside, but I can contact Unlimited Play to see if that's something that is doable at this point, because the structure is custom made as you see it. So we need to make sure that it can accommodate that additional feature and still meet the width for the chair to go through, but it's something we can do.
Okay, yeah.
We
I
can
just
look
think it'd
into.
be wise. I mean, you know, not just wheelchair kids and not just fully functioning kids are going to be going through there, so.
Okay.
And when they need assistance, will.
Yeah. Mr. Holman.
Thank you, sir. This is a little bit in the weeds, Mr. Mustine, but I remember I think it was about 5 years ago, Grandview built a neighborhood park. It's to the north of Blue Ridge, and that park won some kind of national award. These parks are far superior to that. It's a nice park, don't get me wrong, but this is cutting edge stuff. I would assume we would be looking at some leverage. Again, I know we're not done yet, but I would think that there would, on your part, at least want to be on the city's part overall, a strong marketing effort to let people know about this, because I have a feeling this is, both of these are going to be destination locations, and you all should be recognized for the work that you've done.
There are several opportunities to submit these projects for local, state, regional, national awards, and I know that we're looking into those, and I agree. I think that we would miss an opportunity to showcase our city if we don't look into those things. So as we get closer to completing those, we definitely will tell our story, and I know we've already discussed that at the staff level.
Anybody from the council have anything to add to the conversation at this time? Nope. Well, we thank you all for coming in tonight. Thanks for your work that you do. I know you guys' plates are just as full as ours most of the time, and we really do appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys for your support.
We'll let the transition take place here. We have Christine Bushyhead and Corey Henry are here from Bushyhead LLC, and have them introduce. Is anybody else joining you? Yes. Oh, okay. Yes. All right. Great.
I have grossly underestimated the amount of people here, so I do apologize if we're packed those around.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started on our second official item for tonight's work session, which is to work with our annexation consultant to discuss future plans. And I know that they're probably going to pick our brains to see what directions that we have thought up so far. So I know that Mr. Dearborn has shared a lot of the information that many of us have already worked on in the past. Let's see, did you get the, there you go. That was mine. Yours is in that one. No. There you go. Okay, thank you. And they've shared the results of some of the things that we've already done to date. So, Mr. Fearborn, would you like to take this away?
I am going to turn it immediately over to Christine and
Okay.
Corey to take it from here.
All right.
So, because this is our first time with you, would you mind telling us who are the council and who are the, so,
I'm Kevin Barber, City Council, Ward 3.
okay.
Chris Turnbow, Mayor. My phone.
And then,
Now it's on.
Joe Burke, Ward 2, City Council.
John Berenson, Ward 4, City Council.
I'm Mr. Berenson, Protective Detail. Actually, Jay Holman, Ward 3, sorry.
Reginald Townsend, Ward 1.
Tom Circle, Ward 2.
Hi, I'm Sonia Abdelgawad, and I'm a council member for Ward 4.
thank you. That'll kind of help us and take notes and make sure that we're understanding and knowing where we can go for some resources, especially for people with their wards and where,
And Mr. Kevin Kellogg could not be with us this evening. He's a councilman from Ward 1.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn this over pretty quickly to Corey because he's put most of this materials together, but we're really excited to hear some of your input and about what you see in the future. We do know there's a little bit of background, a little bit of history, so we'll look to you to work with us to try to avoid that circumstance again and have something a little bit different as an outcome. And so with that, I'll just let him jump in and tell you what we got here, and you'll already see that we're of like minds without even knowing it.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, thank you. So what you'll see in the map, and Christine has already alluded to it, your prior annexation attempts had a similar layout. We have broken it into 3 plan areas. We've got plan area 1, 2, and 3. Plan area 1 extends east of the city to 291, and then as far south as Hubach Road, and then as far north as 171st Street. Zone 3, north of that, goes up to the southernmost border of Lee Summit from 171st Street, and then Zone 2 extends south from the city, from Hubach Road down to the north side of Peculiar. So we put that together in an attempt to start to guide the conversation and get some input from you on what you see and what you have for the vision for the community. We put in the memo that you have in front of you, the first 4 bullet points there are from the request for production, and that's what was identified by staff for areas we need to make sure we keep in mind as we work through this. And our vision for moving forward is making sure that we have a very narrow and targeted approach for your annexation, given the fact that, in the past there's been some attempts that failed, and so we want to make sure that we provide you with the right information for the areas that you have in mind for annexation. We have we hope to have this process move forward with multiple meetings and input from council. That'll be the most effective way for us to work, and I think that that'll provide a favorable outcome. And so with that, I'll actually kind of ask, may I ask for specific direction or ideas that you might have for annexation regarding this subject?
And before you answer that, I will say that what we have presented here was just us looking at your map, so it was kind of ironic and yet probably a good thing that these lines that we drew were very similar to lines that you've drawn in the past. So it looks like there is some natural lines of evolution. And with that said, it may be best, and in our minds, to have like one final area and not have multiple areas, and maybe define it a little smaller and so that you can achieve something that you want to achieve and then move from there, or at least give us a study area where we can, again, even more thoroughly see what you want there, and then start talking a little bit about land use in that area and where you see the land use going. Because there are some requirements of being a reasonable and necessary extension of the boundaries, which is where a lot of the case law happens and gives us direction on when, the annexation that's more involuntary in nature, which means the larger process if you were to do that with elections, et cetera, we want to hopefully get to the end where if there is a plan and you want it to happen, it can happen either voluntarily or involuntarily. And involuntary is such an unfortunate word because it connotes negativity and maybe not wanting to do something when in actuality it's just the way the statute's written and how that you accomplish large land area annexations. So just keep that in mind too.
Mr. Fearborn?
And just to remind the council, give you a little bit of a historical context. When we went through this several years ago, rather than, and Corey used the term targeted and narrow approach, from staff's standpoint, one of the drawbacks to the last time that we made this attempt was we were very, very nebulous in the area. We had basically all three of these areas included, even though they were distinctly listed as three different areas. Mm-hmm. It wasn't considered one approach. It was three different elections, three different ways to go about it. We crossed 291 by 1/4 mile, which caused a lot of angst on a lot of people's part. So one of the first recommendations staff would be making is get us to 291, but not across, because we know that that's going to lead to a backlash. The area least likely to be able to be served immediately by the city is Area 2 on the map. One of the primary reasons, or one of the primary drivers in looking at annexation areas, you want to be able to serve it as quickly as possible and logically with sewer. 2 is very difficult. Even though it's closer to the lift station, it's actually a lot more difficult to get sewer to areas within there. It also spreads your police force out quite a bit. Realistically, the council, in having discussions this time, has had that same narrow focus on a specific area that we want to make sure that eventually we think we can provide better development opportunities in certain of these areas. The area, and be able to serve them well with police and know that they have good water service and good sewer service out there. And those areas would more than likely be 1 and 3 than 2 is. But as we start all of this, I would encourage the council to let these good folks and staff look at all of these areas and then start narrowing them down with recommendations for you all to be looking at. But just some initial thoughts from me to you all on how we're going to be kind of approaching that from a staff standpoint at least. But we'll be providing them all the information. Handed Corey tonight the last efforts. He wanted all the documentation that we had on. He would have brought it in, but you wouldn't be able to see him behind it. He'd have to part because it's a very large stack of paper. That concludes staff report, sir.
Okay. Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Fearborn, thank you for making that statement, because I'm over here thinking, well, I hope somebody's got some ideas, because this is pretty important. One of the things that I'd like to see happen, though I think it's secondary, is I think it's important for us to find a way to get to 150 Highway north of the city. We've recently taken over full 155th Street right there with an annexation voluntarily with the city of Kansas City. But I think it's important. One thing you'll notice about us is we're fairly locked in, and we don't have control of some of the access points to our city, and so I think that's important. Though I think that is secondary, but I think it's something, since you guys are the experts, to take a look at. And there's some options, I think, there. Maybe something we haven't even thought of. So that's all I've got.
Mr. Holman?
Thank you, sir. I would start off by saying I concur with Councilmember Barber's comments. A lot of the reasons, not all, but a lot of the reasons we want to look at annexation are same things that we hear back on our citizen survey, are complaints about traffic flow. And when we zero in on those traffic flow comments, they're not coming from inside the city, they're coming in on approach to the city or leaving the city. So to open up the transportation network with a good road to 150 would be very beneficial to our citizens, as well as annexation to the east around that an even narrower corridor of the area labeled as 1, which would take us out to 291, maybe get some type of project going with MoDOT where we can improve the road. There's some significant things there that could be improved on that road and make travel much easier for our citizens and our guests as well. So those things are, the transportation segment of this is, I think, very critical to our city and our future and our citizens. Also, I think if we were to annex out to the east in 1, it opens up a lot of undeveloped land for potential residential and even economic growth in the future.
You know, while I agree transportation is a challenge, I, from my perspective, and having worked with the city of Kansas City when I was over at Raytown, it's difficult for them to let go of land that they've already incorporated. I think the part about County Line Road was easy enough to do because just because it was a roadway. I think you're going to find it difficult and may end up eating up some of the funds that we're going to need to, or time, with what we've set aside for budget to do that, working with Kansas City, as opposed to just doing the annexation plan out to the east like we've talked about. Like Mr. Feuerborn, I agree, number 1 is kind of our priority area. Number 3, a close second, and number 2 is a harder area for us to provide immediate service to. I agree the transportation connection is important, but I don't know, is that in the purview of your contract to work toward, like, working with the city of Kansas City to see what they could do to, because I mean, those roads that they're talking about are in corporate city limits of Kansas City.
Now,
And
I think in regards to what I'm hearing is that as we take this, we might actually, I mean, the first thing I thought is go back to the office, let's pull back a little bit and see a bigger line. Where is 150? How does that relate to your corridor? Because I know Pleasant Hill's a good example. I know for a fact that they're trying to find a way to 50. So so I see what they're saying is, but our job is to kind of pull back from a mapping and transport, and then talk to our engineers and say, is this plausible? Is it not plausible? But we don't do anything other than that.
And he used the term earlier, down in the weeds. I may have gotten too far into the weeds myself, Jay, from your perspective.
Well, actually, no, I agree with you. I think certainly if we were to try and annex and take over residences and existing roads such as Kelly or Pryor were not impossible but problematic. However, we did learn recently that Mark does have within their transportation plan a capital project of extending Raytown Road all the way down to 155th Street. And there are sizable chunks of nothing but agricultural land through there that road might go through. My point being that is if we were able to strike a deal with Kansas City and annex something like that was palatable to them, that's a road they don't have to maintain anymore. We would take over maintenance of it because we'd have good maintenance and a good road right out to 150. But yes, I agree on the surface with what's an existing traffic way probably is going to be a little problematic for us.
Okay, no, that's a good point. Mr. Barber.
And I would concur with that too. We have the experts here, and I would hate to go through this whole process and we got down to the end when they're looking at something and they would say, oh, I didn't realize you guys wanted to do this as well. So as I said, it's secondary, but as they're looking at the whole plan, you know, I wanted them to be aware. That's one of the things that we'd like to do. And obviously, like I said, it's secondary, but you never know. We never thought in a million years we could get 155th Street, so until somebody, you know, brought that to somebody's attention. So that was my point in bringing it to the experts' attention.
And just as a reminder to the council, I know most of you know this already, that we can't actually, the state of Missouri passed law, we can't actually just do a road. We have to do what the mayor is speaking to. We have to do the property on either side of the road as well. So.
Mr. Burke.
Before we switch to another area of focus, what kind of extra challenges do we have or may we encounter in going into Jackson County as opposed to staying within our own county? Does that complicate things?
It does. It doesn't, except to the extent that we'd have to see, there is a separate law that governs annexation in Jackson County from a process, but the process is generally the same. So it's just going to be making sure that we might, if there's an extra box we got to check in that process, because it is in Jackson County, we just make sure that that gets done. But the overarching approach of having a plan of intent and the analysis is the same.
And as a reminder on that one, we're already in Jackson County with the north side of 155th Street.
Oh, yeah, the 155th Street. Yeah, just like Lee Summit is also.
But a little bit of a different process there. Yeah. They wanted to give it to us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, Mr. Berenson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I have a question. If we do decide to do any portion of this as forced annexation, what would our timeline look like? I know that would have to go to the ballots. What's the nearest, what's the closest we could do an election? I mean, are we looking a year out? Are we looking closer?
Well, I think that the time frame that we were talking about is like May, where we kind of want to have this wrapped up, this conversation. So in really your August ballot, you have to have something approved by May. So that could be aggressive because
Okay.
if you, it's depending on the area that you identify, and then you identify what kind of public process do you need to have. I mean, if you have open houses, what are you going to do in the time it takes to do that? If you're finding that, you know, you have an idea from your past experience, the positive, we'll want to focus on the positive side of that past experience. What can we do to make that process as simple as possible? And so it's kind of like, we would probably recommend some type of communications to affected property owners. So that's going to push you out. So then your next chance is you're probably, that's August, and then November, which may still be too soon.
Okay.
But then you get into, I don't know what for you guys, in your all's world, you have your politics of April. So whatever that is, but really I think it's going to be a little aggressive to think that you're going to be on the ballot in August.
That leads to my
frankly.
next question too, is there any strategy on which election is better to present this type of question?
Well,
Anything-
sometimes it's all about money too.
Okay.
The more ballot questions, the cheaper the election's going to be for you. That's always my training with city administrators and city managers is the budget. When you're dealing with property and property owners, they usually turn out and vote for their property, and especially when it's this kind of an issue and it has that big of an impact, they're going to be focused regardless of what election date you pick. We all know in the city world that sometimes people are less attentive in August because of whatever their schedules or whatever thing like that. But when it's your property, I think you're going to find that people are going to be attentive regardless of when you hold it.
Thank you.
If I could follow up on
Please.
that. Christine, do you have any historical context or numbers that would, have you been associated with one of these that ever passed on the first ballot, or has it always gone to the second one?
I've been associated, I don't think I've ever been associated with one that didn't go to a second ballot. I mean, it's pretty common.
Sure.
Yeah.
Christine, I was
But
going to ask.
I will say that's involuntary with a capital I.
Sure.
I mean, if we're going to try, I'm not going to give up on the idea that we have involuntary with a small I.
Okay. Mr. Circo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I agree with the mayor and stuff. I think we got to focus on Zone 1. That's always been our prime objective. Get out east to 291. We have the schools out there. We have the landmass. We want to go there for an avenue that'll bring them in from the east back into Raymore, open up so we don't get landlocked. To me, that's a priority. It always has been. Because we know future growth coming south, 291 will get down into this area. Once it gets, it'll stall because it'll take a while to develop. And going to it definitely would be a waste. You don't want to push that into the voters and bring that forward. There's nothing we can, I mean, it would be, to me, a negative in the ballot box. It was before. And 3, maybe moving up to 150. We have 155th, the edge, and how far, just up to that area that's open to see what we can do, but maybe don't go much farther. Keeping that area, bring it down, but it definitely got to go east 58. Definitely got to get to 291 down that corridor of 58. To me, that's a primary focus of what we should be doing on this, and maybe broaden that up, but keep 2 completely out of it.
Excellent.
Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question for staff. The majority of the council was not here the last time the ballot initiative was taken underway. What year was that? I remember, but I don't really remember when it was.
2006.
Is there a particular reason why these 2 are left in that? Christine, I was asking about the 2 little spots up north that would have been contiguous to number 3. If are they in the city of Kansas City, or if they're in the county, why wouldn't you include them in that particular advancement? Because that is the county line there.
Mr. Mayor, when I was putting that together, I drew the line too short. I apologize. So those areas would actually be included in that annexation.
They're in that number 3 plan.
I anticipated that they would be.
Okay.
When I was working in our PDF, I unfortunately took the line too short.
No problem.
But
Okay.
those 2 little carve-outs would, and if you notice, there's these neon green lines that extend north.
Yes.
That denotes city land. And so that there's a portion of that is currently owned by the city now. And so we will need to, so we would expand that area. So that would be helpful. And it may be, and so that's what that looks like.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else at this time? Well, I mean, if we have any additional questions or concerns, Mr. Fearborn is always available and can pass that information on to the group, and hopefully we'll be meeting on a regular basis too to kind of catch up on where we're headed with some of your information.
And
did you
kind
have
of
something?
one of the things I shared with Mr. Fearborn in our preparation for today, we represent cities and developers, and so on the developer side of the table, they are all about no-go benchmarks, so that they don't spend a lot of time and money going down rabbit holes. So our approach is going to be all about trying to get the feedback from you, work with the staff. If we see something come up that we need just bring to you to say, okay, this is something, you've been talking about 150, here's kind of how that's playing out, to get a little bit of feedback so we don't waste a whole lot of your time and money, then we'll do that. So that's we call them go, no-go points.
Sure.
And that's when we come back, you'll know what we're thinking and how we're approaching it.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. Thank you. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to the next item. Thank you all again for being here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
I know that under other, when I was visiting with Mr. Fearborn earlier, he had a couple of things he needed to pass on to us tonight. So, Mr. Fearborn?
Some pretty exciting stuff, actually, from a personnel standpoint that I just wanted to share with the council. 3 things, actually. Our folks at all of the levels continue to amaze me with the contacts they have in the city and the esteem with which outside agencies hold this city and our people. the latest one is the chief has been asked and has volunteered to head up one of the Metropolitan Crime Commission's programs, a very important one. It is the SAFE program. If you all don't know what the SAFE program is, I'm going to ask the chief to just really quickly give you about a
There's a visitor in the lobby that she had to take downstairs.
Okay. The SAFE program basically gives, if an officer in the area is killed in the line of duty, the SAFE program provides them $25,000 immediately to take care of short-term expenses. It's an important program. It's one that is close to a lot of folks' hearts. And so we were really honored that they asked her to head up that program. They've changed things internally over there, so they've got a full-time employee now. They used to have a full-time director, and I think she'll actually be considered the director, but they've hired a couple of people underneath that particular position who are doing the day-to-days. I think she's going to be more, because of the esteem and her presence in the metropolitan area, she'll be assisting with trying to get funds donated, and she'll be heading up a couple of the events that they have. They have, what's it called, Guns and Hoses? She'll be heading up those events for them, and just a real honor for the city to be able to be a part of all of that. And thank you.
Good segue. Come on in. Oh, okay.
I was just telling them about your new appointment, Chief, and I kind of turned without knowing you were gone, and just to kind of give them a real quick 2-minute overview of the SAFE program in general. I think a lot of them know about it, but go ahead.
The SAFE program, the Spouse and Family Endowment, is a program under the Crime Commission. Sorry. I'm out of breath. I'm out of breath. Trying to get him some coffee and some cookies and a warm place to sleep tonight. And there's a child exchange going on in the lobby, and so I didn't want to put him out there. And so, anyway, it's a program that's very near and dear to my heart. Obviously, SAFE has only been in existence here in the metropolitan area, modeled after the Backstoppers program on the St. Louis side. You know, I've lost coworkers, I've lost good friends in the line of duty when this program didn't exist. And so now, you know, through the efforts of the Crime Commission and this sub-program of the Crime Commission, they are able to provide immediate financial assistance to first responders who are killed in the line of duty. Not only killed in the line of duty, but who die on duty from natural causes, or, and I would use Chris Tyndall as an example of how SAFE touched our community when Chris passed away in 2015 after working his canine, you know, on a fire as a result of a fire call. And they were able to provide that immediate financial assistance within 24 hours of his passing. So, you know, it is something that I've actually served on the advisory board of SAFE for a number of years, you know, because of what they provide to first responders, police, fire, and emergency medical personnel. And then, of course, you know, we've had so many tragedies, you know, here in recent years, both of the officers in KCK, the Wyandotte County Sheriff's deputies, Clinton, are great examples of how SAFE has come to the assistance of those families. So.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Yeah, we just marked the 30th anniversary of the firefighters that were killed in the explosion down there off of 71. And actually, it was that incident that kind of sparked the SAFE program to come into existence. The previous director, Sonny Wilson, was former DEA, ATF. Former ATF. I knew I said it wrong when I said it. Who'd kind of handled it for like the last 20 years after his retirement and is moving on. The fundraising event, I was on the board back when I was over at Raytown, and so the fundraising would occur on a regular basis through golf tournaments or other events. The biggest one that's been able to come about is the Guns and Hoses event, the fight night between the cops and firemen. But the SAFE program is for all first responders. I mean, I think that's what's important to understand, is that we've had, the SAFE program is paid out for paramedics killed in the line of duty. Over in Edwardsville several years ago, someone walked in and killed a paramedic, a former spouse or boyfriend or whatever. That family, the surviving family, was taken care of in that incident. Other officers and firemen have been killed en route to work in a car accident. SAFE takes care of them. It is a great program. I'm totally honored that our chief has been chosen to be the new executive director of that, because she will do an awesome job. She's loved throughout the metro area, and it just, I think it really speaks well of our community to have that quality of leadership that we have here in our community. So thank you, Chief, for taking that on.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Second one, wanted to let you all know that today, I'm going to get this wrong again, Alexa Williams started as our new accountant. She is taking the place of Elisa Williams, who is our finance director. She is also the wife of Cole Williams, who's one of our police officers. So I'm calling it Williams, Williams, and Williams, Finance and Securities. And she's going to be a great addition. She was a great intern for us in the finance office for several months over the course of 2 summers ago, and just did a great job. She is actually the creator of the existing format for our budget and brief that you see. Third one, I am excited and honored and pleased to be able to let you know that I am going to be promoting Mike Eakey to Assistant City Manager as of January 1. Mike's responsibilities will include, in the near term, he'll be taking over buildings and grounds, which is what I had as Assistant City Manager as well. He will be taking over risk management for us. He will be taking over human resources for the city. He will continue to supervise communications. And in a longer term, once we get the mobile command center in and get all of the IT that is associated with that completed, where I feel like Mr. Mayberry, it's better that he have a closer relationship and be under the close supervision of the chief. Once that mobile command center is up and running and he and Donahoe can kind of get a little bit of separation, then Mike will also be taking over IT. So those are our reports for this evening, sir.
Okay. Any questions?
I had one
Mr. Townsend.
comment. Congratulations to Chief on the SAFE Program Executive Directorship. And hearing that promotion, hearing that accolade, and it was nice to hear the promotion that you just spoke of, because that was my next question, was what were we doing to relieve Chief of some of her responsibilities? So that's outstanding to hear that Mr. Eakey is also, his abilities and skill set has allowed him the opportunity to also be an excellent candidate to be the Assistant City Manager. So that's outstanding to hear. Next question is, who is filling his role? Yet to be determined.
For now, he'll have that role where he will be supervising. Eventually, I see something happening with Melissa. She's doing a great job for us. Stay tuned on that one, though. Don't want to get too far out in front of myself there.
Yeah.
That includes all staff reports tonight, sir.
Okay. No reason to go into executive session?
No, sir.
All right. We are finito.